Welcome back to another Castlevania review. I previously looked at Aria of Sorrow for the Game Boy Advance. That game was a true masterpiece and a perfect example of a Metroidvania game done right. Any sequel to a game like that has some pretty big shoes to fill. Fans were expecting something that was as good or even better. Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow rises to the challenge, and after playing through this one 100%, I can say that it's on par with the quality established in Aria of Sorrow. This one was released in 2005 for the Nintendo DS, 2 years after Aria. This was the next Metroidvania game released, and the first of 3 for the Nintendo DS. Just like Aria, Dawn of Sorrow is produced by Koji Igarashi and features music by Castlevania legend Michiru Yamane. I played both Aria and Dawn back to back, and Dawn feels almost like the second half of Aria. I rarely hear people talk about this one, and if I had to guess, it's probably because Nintendo never released a device to play DS games on a TV, where the entire Game Boy line was playable on TVs through peripherals for the Super Nintendo and GameCube. The Wii U had 31 DS games in the Virtual Console, but all of them were Nintendo-published games, nothing from Konami. Still, there are some advantages to the DS hardware over the Game Boy Advance. The issue with not having enough buttons is now gone, and the dual screen and touchscreen functionalities were added. Additionally, the sound quality is much better and the graphics are improved due to better hardware. For this video, I played the game on my original DS, which has been modified with a capture card. That way, I was able to play on a computer with a dual monitor setup, so each DS screen appeared on its own monitor. This game is a direct sequel and takes place in 2036, 1 year after the events of Aria. Soma Cruz and his now girlfriend Mina are attacked on the streets of Japan by a cult priestess named Celia Fortner. Her goal is to kill Soma and retrieve the dark power of Dracula that's sealed away within Soma's body. Soma's soul-stealing power begins to reawaken, and he fights off Celia and her demonic minions. He then decides to take the fight to his enemies and travels to the ruins of Dracula's castle in Transylvania with the help of his old friend Hammer. Upon reaching the castle, Genya Arcado, who in this game is confirmed to be Alucard in disguise, Julius Belmont, and Yoko Belnades have also arrived to destroy this new cult. With their help, Soma must explore Dracula's castle and defeat the cult to prevent them from taking Dracula's dark power and using it for their sinister purposes. How the game plays out is up to you, since there are multiple endings to this game. You play the game as Soma, and all of your companions from the first game are back. In addition to the sorceress Celia, there are several other human villains that you'll encounter. These are the chosen to become vessels for Dracula's power, born at the moment of the eclipse in 1999 that whisked away Dracula's castle, just like Soma was. All of these characters, both hero and villain, will lead to a robust amount of dialogue as you traverse the castle. There's a bit of a running gag where everyone refers to Mina as Soma's girlfriend, but this embarrasses Soma and he tries to play it down, saying that they're just friends. It was cute and charming at first, but I think they overplayed this gag just a little too much. Otherwise, the plot developments through the dialogue were very interesting. Just like its predecessor, this is a Metroidvania game. This means that you'll be exploring various areas of Dracula's castle, looking for Celia in order to stop her evil plans. You initially have a limited area that you can explore, but as you gain new abilities, you'll be able to access more of the castle. Many areas will be off limits at first, so you'll be doing a lot of backtracking as you gain new abilities. Unlike Aria, I did get stuck a few times where I didn't know where I needed to go next. It was at times where I acquired a new ability, usually after defeating a boss, and needed to backtrack. It wasn't to the point of frustration, but did probably add at least a few hours of backtracking, looking for every place on the map that I couldn't initially get to. The only thing about the map that I really didn't like was an area with a slide puzzle that rotates rooms. The correct path to advance is the default pattern, but to get 100% area and acquire all weapons and items, you have to get all the slide patterns correctly. This is the only thing that I use an online guide to complete. The starting town contains 2 shops, one run by Hammer and the other by Yoko. When you talk to them, they'll give you somewhat vague hints on what to do next if you're lost. Hammer sells all sorts of healing items, weapons, armor, and special items like maps and some clues in the form of a newspaper. Yoko's shop is a new addition to the series, and I really like the idea behind it. By giving her captured monster souls, you're able to upgrade your weapons into stronger ones. This is essential to acquiring the most powerful arsenal in the game. It's also nice that there's now a reason to collect certain souls. That was a problem in Aria. I ended up using only a few of the over 100 that you could collect. And the soul system has returned with even more souls to collect. There are 115 that you can collect in total. Souls are divided into 4 groups. Red gives you various projectiles that replace the traditional sub-weapons. Blue are activated abilities such as turning into a bat. Yellow are passive bonuses such as increased strength or status effect immunity. Silver souls are permanent abilities like the double jump or underwater movement. You acquire souls by killing enemies. Every enemy with an exception of a few bosses can give you a soul. Ones that are required from bosses will give you the soul immediately. Regular enemies will drop a soul randomly based on Soma's luck. Multiple souls of the same monster will increase the strength of that ability, and there are combos that will multiply the strength of each. Sadly, a lot of the souls are repeats from Aria of Sorrow, since a lot of the enemies are the same. This makes the game a little less interesting because you know what a lot of these souls are going to do, and you'll seek out the ones that you know that you need, like the Hippogriff. Just like Aria, you'll need 3 particular souls in order to finish the game and not get the bad ending. There are clues left throughout the castle about how to get them, and I thought it was implemented much better in Dawn. There are 4 clues for each soul in the form of newspaper pages. Each of these clues describes a location and monster you'll need to hunt down, as well as what to do to lure them out. The clues were a lot more intuitive than Aria, as that one had a vague single-sentence clue for each one. The monsters you'll have to track down aren't regular enemies either. Instead, they're hidden and you'll have to do something particular to lure them out. For instance, there's a Sasquatch moving around in the background of the first room, and I originally thought that it was just a neat background animation. Turns out, you'll need to find out how to lure it to the foreground, then figure out how to kill it before it escapes in order to get its soul. Another new feature is that you can set up multiple soul combinations and equipment, then switch between them with the X button on the fly. This is really great since it saves a lot of time having to constantly reconfigure souls to help you with different enemies or obstacles. The controls are spot on again, and Soma controls just as good as ever. There are dedicated buttons for the backslide, activating sustained abilities, switching equipment combos, as well as a button for a power attack. Soma's jumps are very controllable and precise. All of the controls are incredibly responsive as well. Overall enemy placement is good, and the difficulty progression of enemies is pretty fair and balanced. This game is a little more challenging than Aria was, which I appreciate since that one felt a little too easy. New areas will always have difficult enemies for your current level of progress. Going back to the store to buy more healing items and power-ups means getting to smash through easy enemies, and it's rather satisfying to blow through those enemies in early rooms as fast as you can while trying to do as much damage as possible. Boss battles are even more extravagant than before, with larger boss sprites and even more intricate patterns to learn. Some fights require you to think outside of the box and use certain abilities to penetrate the enemy defenses. Overall, almost all the bosses were incredibly creative. You'll find areas of the castle both old and new. Staples of the series like the castle corridor, garden, and clock tower are all here, with new areas like the Demon Guest House, Mine of Judgment, Wizardry Lab, Lost Village, and a final area known only as the Abyss. I like that there were more secret breakable walls as well, and there's even a soul that helps you detect where there's a breakable wall in a room. I don't think that I would have been able to get 100% of the map uncovered on my own without it. There's also a lot of new barriers with interesting ways around them. Some areas require hitting a switch from the other side, and sometimes you need a bat, double jump, or high jump to access an area. New are slots in the wall just too small to pass through. These will require a soul that allows you to toss a dummy through the slot, then magically switch places with it. That ability is also a great way to get behind a rather tough enemy, especially ones with a shield in front. I thought the touchscreen controls added another interesting facet to the gameplay. There are certain blocks like ice that you can only break with the touchscreen. You'll need certain ability souls to activate this, and in those areas, you'll have to be careful about the path that you carve with the stylus in order to allow Soma to get through these maze-like areas. You'll also use the stylus to break magic seals and defeat bosses. You'll learn magic seals through the game, and requires you to complete a pattern on screen when the pentagram overlay appears. This unlocks doors and is required to destroy bosses. If you fail to draw the seal in time on a boss, they'll recover some health and the fight will continue. Sometimes this got really frustrating, especially later bosses where you need to enter a pretty complex pattern in a very quick amount of time. At least there's an option in the menu to practice the patterns as much as you want. The dual screen is also used very efficiently. The entire game is played on the lower screen, and the top screen will display the map or your status at all times. I really like having the map open all the time instead of having to switch to the map screen. Overall, a good use of the dual screen. Graphics have also been improved over the GBA titles. The game opens with an anime video cutscene and looks good on the portable screen, but when I was playing it on the TV, looked incredibly pixelated with tons of MPEG artifacting. The character and monster sprites are much more detailed and contain far more colors. The animations contain more frames, and gone is the comical animation of Soma's detached arm rotating to swing a big weapon. Enemies have their own attack animation and even more detailed death animations. I really like that all 118 enemies had a unique and extended death sequence. Backgrounds have even more layers of scrolling than Aria, and some enemies even start out moving around in the background before popping up in front of you. Backgrounds are also very detailed and are larger so they don't repeat as often as previous titles. The sound is much improved. Effects and music are sampled at a much higher rate and are clean, crisp, and clear. The music is phenomenal in this game, even better than Aria. You have a new theme for this game, plus areas that play the Aria theme, as well as remixes of Beginning from Castlevania 3, Bloody Tears from Castlevania 2, and Vampire Killer from the original. There's a sound test menu, and all of these songs are MP3 quality. Overall, this is one of the best soundtracks of any Castlevania game. Upon getting the bad ending, you'll unlock Julius mode. In this mode, you'll play as Julius Belmont, and you can get two companions similar to Castlevania 3. You'll find Yoko, who plays much like Sypha with her magic spells, and Alucard, who plays just like Symphony of the Night. In this mode, you play out a scenario where you'll need to keep your promise to Soma and kill him, as Dracula's power has overtaken him. I really like that it's not just to play the game as an alternate character mode, and found it really fun, especially with the ability to switch between the three characters. The text scroll indicates that Hammer was supposed to be in this mode as well, taking the role that Grant played in Dracula's Curse, but unfortunately, he didn't make it into the final version. Beating the game with one of the good endings will unlock a hard mode as well as a boss rush mode, so there's a lot of replayability to this game. Beating the game on hard mode even unlocks the Hellfire Soul. I really like this entry, and the best ending provided a very satisfying end to Soma's story, as well as the Castlevania series as a whole, since this is the final game in the original timeline. Comparing it to Aria, Dawn is as good, but I have to give Aria props for being the better game overall. This is only because Aria broke the mold with the Soul system. Dawn adds some new features and perfects many of Aria's shortcomings, but didn't change anything too much to stand out as a truly unique experience. It's like the lost levels compared to the original Super Mario Bros. It's a great game in itself, but it was mostly the same in terms of gameplay. If you enjoyed Aria, or you're just looking for a great Castlevania game to sink some time into, you really do need to try out Dawn of Sorrow. On top of it being a fun and engaging game, it also provides a definitive ending to the Belmont story and the Soma Cruz saga that has spanned 7 centuries of war against Dracula and his evil forces. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this one if you played it. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then.